Hello and welcome everybody to the introduction, the pilot episode of Hard Hat Hockey. I am so excited to be here with you today. My name is Trenton Dunn and I'll be your host for the long haul for all of it. I'll be joined by my side by a team of blue-collar, like-minded, hockey-loving individuals like myself named Mitchell Czerniak and Grant Miller. They'll be featured on our first episode. Coming up, really wanted to do this one as kind of an introduction before we got into our playoff matchup analysis this coming weekend. We're so excited to have you here. We've been talking about the idea of hard hat hockey for well over a decade now. We all met at the College of Wooster in Northeast Ohio, in Wooster, Ohio, where we played football together. We're in Greek life together, and then embarked on the various industries of the United States through our 20s and often found ourselves questioning what journey life was taking us on, to include cold calls and sales pitches, and at one point, period of time, selling phone books through parking lots and waiting tables at an Outback Steakhouse. And amidst all the confusion and looking for a rudder in sometimes life's different directions, we always came back to the game of hockey, and the NHL specifically seemed to give us solace and an escape and really just a break from reality from the 9 to 5 that we were embarking on. And we come to find out, met a lot of other great people who loved hockey, and undoubtedly we know there are a bunch of amazing, hardworking Americans just like ourselves who frankly need a break. And that's what we wanted this podcast to be at Hard Hat Hockey. Break from reality to where you can sit back, relax, and enjoy a little hockey talk with like-minded individuals just like yourself. So a rundown for episode 1, or rather our intro episode today. We can technically call it episode 1, I guess. We're going to be talking about the regular season of a lifetime that we're currently witnessing, just given the popularity of the NHL, the explosion of the league, and some all-star performances, frankly, that have been unprecedented. Some revamped fighting in the league featuring Mr. Matt Rempe from the New York Rangers. The Battle of the Hudson has been revamped officially, talking about the Eastern Conference playoff race that seemed to never end, given that no team officially would come up and take the last spot until the very last day. It's as if a month-long battle that nobody actually wanted the last spot. And we'll look at all 4 of those teams as that started to settle into form really yesterday, with the Red Wings winning to the Canadiens, but not being able to be enough since the Capitals didn't win a regulation against the Philadelphia Flyers. Quick playoff preview. We'll really dive in depth in our next episode into matchup analysis for the playoffs. A little bit about the Arizona Coyotes and their situation, what that means for fans, what that means for players moving forward, the progression of the league, just a lot of analysis about the decisions to move the team to Salt Lake City. For tonight, in the time of recording, we're looking at a few games that still have some weight in the remainder of the league. The LA Kings and the Vegas Golden Knights are exchanging blows essentially for seeding. As it stands on April 17th, you have the Los Angeles Kings currently with 97 points and that one game remaining this evening against Chicago. That is the second place in the wild card standings. And then you have the Vegas Golden Knights, third in the Pacific Division, currently not a wild card team, with 98 points. So depending on the outcomes of their respective games this evening, that should solidify the final dance in the seeding placement of the Western Conference. Then we'll officially know who the matchups are moving forward to this weekend. Before we get started here, currently you can reach us at hardhathockey1@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from all of our fans. I'm going to have a few questions for the fans around the country at the end. We'd love to get some feedback from you all, topics of conversation that you'd like to hear us discuss, and anything that you'd like to tell us about yourselves, where you're from, who you cheer for, and maybe we'll give you a shout out on upcoming episodes. And we're definitely going to be looking to do giveaways and all kinds of fun engagement with Hard Hat Hockey fans. So kicking things off here, the wild card race in the Eastern Conference took about a good month for a team to finally assert themselves, coming down to game 82, realistically, for the Washington Capitals. That was yesterday at Philadelphia. Philadelphia with an outside chance to secure the second wild card spot in the East, but to no avail. The Detroit Red Wings secured a knockout blow, if you will, by taking the Canadiens to overtime, effectively eliminating the Philadelphia Flyers. Unaware of the situation, John Tortorella, with the game tied at 1-1, pulled his goalie, giving the Washington Capitals an empty netter by TJ Oshie as they proceeded to win the game 2-1 and secure that last wild card position. So Red Wings fans and Penguins fans alike missing the playoff race by a nail at the end. But kudos to the Washington Capitals for playing hot at the end, frankly, and making it happen and getting in to the playoffs for 2024. The Capitals, I was able to see live in January against the Colorado Avalanche. Just for all of your SA, that is my team since I was very young, and I am a diehard Avs fan to this day. Hope they win the Stanley Cup in 2024, although I'm not as confident as I was in 2022, frankly, but we'll see how it goes. In reference to the Capitals, at the time, I thought they looked kind of slow, clearly an aging team, currently sporting a minus 41 goal differential. They are 28th in the league in goals, scoring at 2.63 goals per game, 31st in shots per game, generating just 27. So a feeble offensive effort throughout the season, but you can never discount the veteran presence of Alex Ovechkin, John Carlson, and TJ Oshie, just to name a few. Also love Abe Kubel, who was an Avs alumni from that 2022 Stanley Cup team. So with some veteran leadership and playoff experience, this team was able to will themselves from a feeble situation back in January, post All-Star break, went on a heck of a run and willed themselves to the playoff spot. So I do question if that offense can hold up. With a minus 37 goal differential, I do question their success and how long they'll be able to make a run into the playoffs, but nonetheless, they did make it. The first team eliminated, being the Detroit Red Wings, a couple years back, were able to secure GM Steve Yzerman, longtime alumni, who was able to bring Stanley Cup stardom to the city of Detroit. Since has been referenced as the Steve Yzer plan, as he was able to acquire the likes of JT Compher, Alex DeBrincat, Petrie from the Montreal Canadiens, and Patrick Kane in November from free agency. Clearly, Kane still, after the hip surgery, able to perform. They did slide the last 10 games, 3-4-3, approaching their last 2 games against the Montreal Canadiens. In dramatic fashion, they were able to tie both of those games and win both of those games at the buzzer. So very fun to see that. No doubt the injury to Dylan Larkin played a large part in their slide leading up to the end of the season. And I wonder if, had he been present, we're probably looking at a different second wildcard team. But I digress. The Detroit Red Wings are a team to certainly look out for in the future, and I look for them to make the playoffs next year. Moving on, the next team would have been the Pittsburgh Penguins, currently at 88 points. They have 1 game remaining against the New York Islanders, and it will not matter. That will be this evening. Gotta wonder how they feel about the Jake Gensel trade at this moment. Sidney Crosby went beast mode his last 10 games. He had 8 goals and 12 assists leading up to the end of the season. The Pittsburgh Penguins went on a tear of a record of 7-0-3. The Pittsburgh Penguins and new GM Kyle Dubas from the Toronto Maple Leafs elected to trade Jake Gensel at the deadline. We'll be looking at this move thoroughly during the offseason and the future of the Pittsburgh Penguins, but just to touch on it briefly, it didn't seem to sit well with Hall of Famer Sidney Crosby. And I quote from TSN, "I don't know. It's probably a better question for them." And this quote was highlighted because Sidney Crosby is normally very transparent and honest with the media. And clearly in this interview, he had frustrations with the move. You got to wonder about the relationship between Hall of Famer and King of Pittsburgh, Sidney Crosby, and new GM, and what Sidney Crosby is going to be thinking moving forward. This would be the second year in a row the Pittsburgh Penguins did not make the playoffs, and clearly will not sit well with a Hall of Fame player like Sidney Crosby. As an Avs fan, it is my wish to bring him out to Colorado so he can play with his best friend Nathan MacKinnon, and we can all just be one big happy family together. I do not think that is realistic, as I think that he will live and retire as a Pittsburgh Penguin, but a man can dream. The future of Letang and Malkin will definitely be in question, and if they're going to rebuild or not, we'll be looking into all of that in future episodes. The next team I want to discuss in this Eastern Conference race, Philadelphia Flyers, ending the season yesterday, again, in that empty net situation, tied 1-1. John Tortorella didn't have the situational awareness that the Red Wings had secured the last point, and the Flyers had been effectively eliminated from the playoff race. And some will view it as a mistake. We all know John Tortorella doesn't allow iPads on the bench, or at least does not prefer them. So did not have the intel to make an informed decision. He was playing for the playoffs, didn't have all the intelligence. Frankly, it's a competitive move. I like him going for the win and not concerning his team with the likes of others. So I understand where he was coming from. I don't think Torch should be given a hard time for this. He's trying to go all in. He's trying to get a team who, frankly, overperformed this season, and got to give tip your cap to him for bringing this roster to that position and even having a chance of making the playoffs at the very end. They were definitely a Cinderella story at first, kind of stumbled around the All-Star break. I did kind of fall in love with their forward core around Konechny, Bobby Brink, Morgan Frost, all big-time energy guys, and with pantry full of blue-chip prospects and draft picks that they have in their arsenal, I expect them to be pushing for Eastern Conference playoff berths as soon as next year. Interesting move to me was to trade defenseman Sean Walker, that is, to the Colorado Avalanche at the trade deadline. As an Avs fan, I'm not complaining. He is having an amazing year, but it did seem like Keith Jones and Danny Briere couldn't make up their minds if they wanted to commit to this season and make the playoffs, or commit to their rebuild and continue to build around this team and to build their core. So it seemed like they made an intermediate move, which to me is hell for the NHL. That is how you get your team stuck in purgatory and mediocrity, as we've seen with so many teams who float in that 10 to 20 rankings for very long periods of time, i.e. the Minnesota Wild. Apologies if you're a Minnesota fan. Don't hold that against me. Next, I'd like to discuss the New York Islanders. I include them in this race. They were pretty much as securely in the third place of the Metropolitan Division the entire time, but we're always being threatened by one of these pushes for the final wildcard spot. Patrick Waugh took over the head coaching gig. I believe his first game was that outdoor game when Matt Rempe stormed into the league and made his presence known with his first fist fight in the first second of his first shift against New York Islanders longtime enforcer Matt Martin. Since Patrick Waugh has taken over, he's heavily leaned on former Avs Semyon Varlamov in the last 10 games leading up to the end of the season. They were 6-3-1 with a 2.41 goals against average and a save percentage of .923. Varlamov being 6-3-1 his last 10. The Isles in their last 10 were 8-2. So definitely leaning on some strong goaltending. Not necessarily the strongest offense, with a goal differential of -18 and goals for of 241. Definitely going to be relying a lot on that goaltending moving forward in a first-round playoff matchup against the Carolina Hurricanes. So we'll look to that moving forward. Before we move on to our Fight Club analysis of Matt Rempe, I'd like to give a shout out to our sponsor. This regular season recap is sponsored by Leroy's Bar. Located in the heart of Wooster, Ohio, Leroy's establishment has provided cheap pitchers and a safe haven for blue-collar workers alike since 1969. Leroy's can be your hockey home for all the NHL playoff action. Drink responsibly and drive safe. Okay, Hardhead hockey fans, welcome back. Moving on to a fun and entertaining topic. Matt Rempe is something that we're going to touch on a lot moving forward as well. He stormed into the league. As mentioned earlier, second into his first shift of his first game, Matt Martin makes a respectful veteran move, offers the new enforcer in the league to his first fisticuff in the outdoor game against the New York Islanders. After that, he fought 5 times in his first 8 games. Through his first 15 games, he had 70 penalty minutes. question moving forward is going to be, one, is this sustainable for the young rookie? And two, is this going to be a detriment in the playoffs? The New York Rangers just secured the President's Trophy with 114 points. And as we've seen with the likes of, say, a Nazem Kadri to the Toronto Maple Leafs, not to say Matt Rempe is on the same skill level as Nazem Kadri. However, we have seen penalties, majors, match penalties, be a detriment to teams that frankly have Stanley Cup aspirations. So you definitely want to be able to contain that, especially with a lack of playoff experience in Matt Rempe. They need to talk to him before they dive into their first round playoff matchup, even if it is against the Washington Capitals. I digress. On March 10th, he delivered, he being Matt Rempe, a questionable hit on Jonas Siegenthaler en route to fighting Curtis McDermott, also former F, love him. Needless to say, the Devils did take exception to the hit, and on April 2nd, 2024 at Madison Square Garden, we witnessed a rare occurrence in the NHL world, a 5v5 line brawl at the opening faceoff. Fun fact, I do also remember this occurring March 19th, 2012. I had to look into the date because I remember watching that game at my parents' house and calling my dad with some electric energy to let him know that the Rangers and Devils had in fact renewed the Battle of the Hudson in 2012. And funny enough, they renewed it again in 2024. I'm not sure my dad cared as much as I did, but it is, like we said, always important to share your hockey memories with good people. Can't deny the electricity of this rivalry and the renewal of it. I wish the Devils had made the playoffs because this would have been a lot of fun to watch. Devils certainly had high expectations coming into this season with an up-and-coming star in Jack Hughes. Unfortunately, head coach Lindy Ruff did not pan out. They never seemed to get things going, and he was removed from his position probably a couple months back. They'll look to shore up the head coaching seat as well as goaltending in the offseason. Hopefully they can right the ship moving forward. To touch on this season as one of the best of all time, and certainly just a general blanket statement of where the league is currently. They just set the single seat attendance record of 22.5 million fans in seats. The last record was set in the 22-23 season with 22.4 million fans. This year will set a record revenue for the NHL with $6.2 billion. Needless to say, the league has only been growing. It is exploding, and especially as we've seen in the last 5 years, the game seems to be growing at a exponential rate with the increase of outdoor games overseas, ESPN contracts, even the growth of the game at the college level. Watching the DU Pioneers secure the recent Frozen Four was amazing, priceless entertainment to watch on ESPN. And stars like Connor Bedard coming into Chicago, who has been the sole hope to revamp that organization. I'd imagine they're going to have another high draft pick to skate right alongside him. He seems to be a shoo-in for the Calder Trophy. Las Vegas odds had him winning the trophy at minus 2,500, 22 goals and 61 points on the season thus far. If you like money, you could go ahead and put a couple dollars on that, although you might not win a whole lot. Connor McDavid just secured his 100th assist with 132 points and 100 assists. He is only the fourth player in history to reach that mark of 100 apples, alongside greats Gretzky, Lemieux, and Bobby Orr. Fun fact, Nikita Kucherov of the Tampa Bay Lightning currently sits at 99, and I frankly think he will join Connor McDavid as the fifth to reach 100 apples in a season. Austin Matthews currently has 69 goals, has one more chance to reach the illustrious 70 goals. Unprecedented mark of goal scoring. You got to think one of these Canadian teams between Edmonton and Toronto will make a serious run at bringing the cup back to Canada. Alex Ovechkin is chasing Gretzky's all-time record of 894 goals. Ovechkin currently sits at 853. He has 31 goals this season, meaning he has 41 to go. He's currently 38 years old. Last season, he was able to pass Wayne Gretzky for the most 40-goal seasons with 13. That is consistency if I've ever seen it. I hope Ovechkin gives us at least 2 more good years where I thoroughly believe he will break Gretzky's all-time goal record. A lot of stats to go over or really digest. Point being, with the All-Stars that we're seeing, with these performances, with the immense boost of fans across the country, with the rate of revenue, it is safe to say that this season of the NHL has been priceless home entertainment, and we've all enjoyed it from the beginning all the way to the end of the regular season. And I can only imagine that these playoffs are going to be must-watch television. On a more somber note, the Arizona Coyotes are moving to Salt Lake City. The ownership group, Ryan Smith, current owner of the Utah Jazz, was able to convince Gary Bettman and NHL executives that this was the right decision. And frankly, I would have to agree from a league standpoint. However, from a player standpoint, from a fan perspective, longtime Coyote loyalist, it's hard to put into words what this means for a community, losing a team that you've been behind for decades. I couldn't even imagine if it was my team, and I sympathize and reach out to those who are going to be at the last Coyotes game tonight as they play the Edmonton Oilers. I know that there is a fan watch party organized outside of the arena. I'm going to be tuning in. I'm sure that's going to be very fun, probably emotional moment for some people. The Smith family ownership group seems very excited to deliver a quality product for the NHL that will parallel its current success in the Salt Lake City area. They've promised renovations to the Delta Arena that the Jazz currently play in, and the development of a new arena and arena district for the new team, which has yet to decide on a team name or brand. I'm sure we're going to hear an announcement at the end of the season, possibly after tonight's last home game. Frankly, could be ever for the Arizona Coyotes. And I quote from current owner Alex Marullo, "We are focused on a myriad of issues that are unresolved, and therefore we are unable to make any official comments at this time. However, you have my commitment that I am going to speak on all of these issues and publicly address all of your concerns as promptly as possible." I know a lot of fans are looking for clarity in a situation that moved very quick over the last couple of weeks as we approach the end of the season. The writing was on the wall. The Arizona Coyotes were not making the playoffs, and they did seem cursed to play in Mullet Arena, which, for those of you who don't know, is Arizona State Sun Devils College Arena. I think it sits 5,000 people. And as I've discussed with my co-host on the show here, you're playing big boy hockey, you need a big boy arena. Like I said, I hate it for the fans, and we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the fan perspective and the player's perspective of this situation, the future of this franchise, what that will look like in Salt Lake City. I would like to just brief history on the situation. It seemed that Alex Marullo, current owner, not for long, never was able to find his footing and finding success in the area. And frankly, it seemed like they ran into a lot of political gridlock as well. The Gila River Arena situation in Glendale, they were evicted as a team. You'll hear rumors on Twitter and other sources that say that they didn't pay their bills, but I have it under good authority that that's not true. They never had any financial trouble in that contract in the Glendale Arena. They did, however, not agree to a 12-year extension, which ultimately led to them being evicted from the Gila River Arena and having to resort to Mullet Arena. The college resort essentially was their only option. They asked the city of Tempe to build an arena, but they were shot down by local government, and then were exploring the option of a Scottsdale arena, which would not be ready for 3 more years, which means that they were committed to Mullet Arena for at least 3 more years. And then even to do so, they would have to win an Arizona state land auction, which would be held on June 27th, which at that point, you're not even considering moving the team to Salt Lake City. That is well beyond the point for the rest of the league to commit to the upcoming schedule for the 2024-2025 season. So you hit a certain point where you have to make a decision. Gary Bettman's hands were tied. This team has been bought back by the league and Gary Bettman formerly. When Wayne Gretzky was the head coach, I believe it was the 07-08 season, we ran into the same issues. And then again, it's always been a great idea. Hockey in the desert, the branding, the Coyotes have some of the best uniforms. They have some of the most loyal fans, which is why I hate this situation for them. And there is not all hope lost. It does seem that in the contract negotiation, Alex Marullo will keep branding rights to the Coyotes brand and the mascot and everything associated with the Coyotes, the team and all hockey operations are simply leaving for the Smith family ownership in Salt Lake City, which suggests to me the NHL will be expanding again. They will be looking to add teams to other cities, to include host cities of Houston, Quebec City, or now, oh, looky here, we have the Phoenix, Arizona City, who now has the owning rights to the Phoenix Coyotes. They just don't have a team currently. So I don't think all hope is lost in this situation. I think it's very likely the Phoenix Coyotes do return as a team, obviously with different management and different players. But I do think that there is a future for hockey in the city. There needs to be a serious conversation with local government and getting through this political gridlock to support the success of this team. Because undoubtedly, this was not all the team's fault. This was not all Alex Murillo's fault. And we'll talk about that much further in later episodes. Okay, somber note is done. Now shifting gears to the very exciting playoffs of 2024 season. Starting Saturday, April 20th, the Eastern Conference matchup, as it stands, will be the New York Rangers versus the Washington Capitals, the Carolina Hurricanes versus the New York Islanders, the Boston Bruins versus the Toronto Maple Leafs, ho-hum, and the Florida Panthers, the Atlantic Division champions, will be playing fellow Florida rival Tampa Bay Lightning. Gotta be honest, I did not see those last two matchups coming. Boston Leafs probably saw that coming, but I didn't see the Panthers and Bolts coming. And the fact that these two teams have to play each other in the first round, you could argue is a little unfair given the success of the Panthers. And we'll get into the playoff format of the NHL as well in this coming offseason and if that warrants a change. But I digress. This matchup's going to be awesome. Gary Bettman has done a really good job in this current playoff format of creating matchups in the first round that deliver entertainment. And that's exactly what we're going to get, especially from this Eastern Conference. Running through the West, as it stands, and this is the one that could change, we've got the Dallas Stars versus the Los Angeles Kings, Winnipeg Jets versus the Colorado Avalanche, let's go Avs, Golden Knights versus the Vancouver Canucks, and the Preds versus the Oilers. Couple questions before we sign off here. Again, reach out to us on hardhathockey1@gmail.com. That's the words hardhathockey and the number 1@gmail.com. What do you think about the Stanley Cup returning to Canada after 30 years between Vancouver, Edmonton, Toronto? Do any of these teams get it done? And does the trophy go back to Canada? Let us know in your email. Is Vegas going over the line with their use of the long-term IR? 2 years in a row, the convenience of the return of their captain, Mark Stone, 8 days before the first day of the playoffs, seems to be very convenient timing. Some managers have gone much farther than that, and other managers seem to think that it is simply a loophole in the NHL that needs to be fixed. Who wins the Hart Trophy? Does Colorado Avalanche secure Nathan MacKinnon's prowess, or is it going to be Nikita Kucherov from the Tampa Bay Lightning as he approaches 100 assists? Or is it somebody maybe that's a little off the wall, like an Artemi Panarin, who's carried the New York Rangers to a President's Trophy performance? Or somebody like Sidney Crosby. I do think his chances were slashed immediately yesterday when they did not get their playoff bid. However, he did put up a behemoth of a performance leading up to the very end. So let me know what you think. And finally, question for the fans, and we'll read the best answer aloud in our next episode. Starting NHL goaltender of your choice, and you are on a breakaway, what move are you going to make? Obviously, you're going to score. That's never in question. The question is, how are you scoring? And for effect, how are you celebrating? Let us know. Again, we are so excited to have you here at Hard Hat Hockey. We look forward to so many more episodes with you as you join our family. Take a break from the real world. Take a break from reality. Relax with us. You deserve it. Hardworking Americans across the country love hockey just like us. We'll be here with you every step of the way. Y'all have a good one.